Trump administration is corrupt. No one, not even a president, is above the law.
Well, we have a Fox News alert. The Angle has exclusively obtained the criminal referral for Democrat Senator Adam Schiff. It shows the underlying conduct described could result in claims of mortgage fraud. The referral submitted to the DOJ by Housing Director Bill Pulte alleges that Schiff has, in multiple instances, falsified bank documents and property records to acquire more favorable loan terms, impacting payments from 2003 to 2019 for a Potomac, Maryland-based property. Schiff owns a home in California and another in Maryland. Well, perhaps, when the Democrats decided to have Mr. High and Mighty Adam Schiff head an impeachment witch hunt against Trump, they should have done their due diligence, not just on their absurd allegations, but on their own chairman.
Today, we're talking about Adam Schiff and how his legal troubles could lead to severe financial consequences without him ever even seeing the inside of a jail cell. There's a legal process in fraud cases that most people don't hear about, and it's called civil enhancements. Now, these enhancements increase financial penalties based on things like how much money was involved, how sneaky the fraud was, and whether the person committing it held public office. We're not a law firm, but today what we're going to do is we're going to break down these civil enhancements one by one, explaining exactly how they apply to Adam Schiff. That's right, old Shifty Schiff, and what kind of fines he could be facing. Now, before we dive into the details, let's break down what this whole civil enhancement thing actually means. Because yeah, it sounds complicated, but it's really not. Picture this. Someone gets caught doing something shady, like lying on a mortgage paperwork or claiming tax breaks that they don't deserve. Now, if it's a one-time slip-up, that's bad. But if it's done repetitively, in a calculated way, and by someone who's supposed to know better, that's when the system steps in and says, we're stacking extra penalties on top. And that stack is called a civil enhancement. It's like getting detention not just for skipping class, but also for lying about it, doing it 5 times, and being the student council president while doing it. Each layer makes the punishment heavier, and that's exactly what's happening with Adam Schiff. Based on the allegations, he's racked up +9 enhancement levels, which is serious. If it goes to court, the penalties could be way worse than most people realize. We're talking massive fines, ethics hearings, and possibly losing his seat at the table. Now that you got the basics, let's get into the breakdown. The 4 major civil enhancements are, number 1, loss amount enhancements. In other words, the more money involved, the bigger the fine. And number 2 is the abuse of public trust. In other words, fraud committed by a public official automatically carries heavier penalties. Number 3 is long-term fraud patterns. What that is if a fraud stretches over, say, years or even decades, the punishment multiplies. Number 4 is sophisticated financial deception. Fraud isn't just stealing, it's covering tracks, altering records, and rerouting money to hide the crime. These enhancements, they all stack together. If Adam Schiff is hit with all 4, he won't be facing just one fine. He'll be looking at multiple layers of financial penalties. Now let's break it down step by step. Loss amount enhancement. Let's start with the financial hit. Adam Schiff manipulated mortgage records by claiming his Maryland home was his primary residence, which allowed him to secure favorable loan terms. At the same time, he was reportedly receiving California tax breaks on a condo he also claimed as his main residence, which allowed him to secure favorable loan terms. At the same time, he was reportedly receiving California tax breaks on a condo he also claimed as his main residence. This setup involved multiple refinances and conflicting filings spanning from 2003 to 2020, raising serious questions about dual state benefits and occupancy fraud. The federal system adjusts for penalties based on the total loss. Now in Adam Schiff's case, we're talking about $180,000 to $260,000 in questionable transactions. Legal guidelines say this fraud amount qualifies for 4 to 6 level sentencing increase. meaning fines could start at 200,000 and could rise to 600,000 even before any criminal trial. Now, the courts calculate penalties beyond the fraud total, adding interest, restitution fees, and forced liquidations of assets. Now, if this enhancement sticks, expect financial collapse before any conviction is even discussed. Abuse of public trust? This one carries a +2 level because of Adam Schiff's position as a U.S. Senator and former House Intelligence Chair. He wasn't just any fraud suspect. He was responsible for oversight and national security while allegedly falsifying documents for personal gain. When a public official like Adam Schiff is accused of fraud, the system doesn't treat it like any ordinary case. Federal guidelines say that abusing public trust adds extra weight, usually an additional $50,000 to $100,000 in fines, just because of the position that they held. How it works? Civil lawsuits become more aggressive against public figures because the fraud is seen as a betrayal of government integrity. If convicted under this enhancement, expect civil fines beyond standard fraud cases, making financial recovery nearly impossible. Long-term fraud pattern. This is a level 2 enhancement, and for good reasons. Adam Schiff's alleged mortgage manipulation wasn't just a one-time scheme. It stretched from 2003 to 2020, making it a structured financial deception over nearly 2 decades. Long-term fraud triggers an extra increase by adding $60,000 to $120,000 in financial penalties. Courts don't just fine for individual fraud instances, they scale penalties based on how long the deception lasts. This means fines can go beyond the fraud total. Now, this enhancement ensures that Adam Schiff won't just pay the transaction themselves, but also for the years of financial damage they caused. Let's talk about sophisticated financial deception. Here's a kicker. This enhancement also carries a +2 level and deals with how fraud may have been covered up. Adam Schiff allegedly altered records, misclassified financial documents, and rerouted filings to secure favorable loans. According to allegations, this wasn't just basic fraud, it was structured deception. Now, the legal impact of this is the courts increased penalties for fraud involving document manipulation, adding $80,000 to $160,000 in additional fines. This enhancement prevents him from escaping with minimum fees. Structured deception is one of the few areas where civil penalties can exceed criminal sentence recommendations. If prosecuted under this enhancement, expect full financial audits, asset seizures, and government-imposed restitution fees. Let's estimate the total civil penalties. Let's break that down. Basic fraud penalties, $180,000 to $260,000. Loss amount enhancement, $200,000 to $600,000. Abuse of public trust penalty, $50,000 to $100,000. And long-term fraud penalty, $60,000 to $120,000. Structured financial deception penalty, $80,000 to $160,000. Financial civil penalty estimate, $570,000 to $1.2 million. And that's before legal fees, asset recoveries, or restitution charges. Even if criminal charges never stick, these civil fines are designed to bankrupt, destabilize, and remove him from political power entirely. Will Adam Schiff actually face charges? Criminal convictions take time, but civil penalties hit immediately. The question is whether his political alliance will protect him. Legal stall tactics could delay investigations, slow audits, and negotiate settlements before changes move forward. If subpoenas hit, expect internal negotiations where fines are paid and criminal charges just quietly disappear. And what happens next? This is how political fraud works, not just through bad transactions, but through legal loopholes that prevent full accountability. Will Adam Schiff see a courtroom? Maybe. Will Adam Schiff lose everything through civil penalties? Almost certainly. And this is why exposing the process matters, before the case gets buried and fines get quietly paid off. Comment, subscribe, and keep the conversation and discussion moving. Because when civil penalties start stacking, it's only the beginning.